Hi there, today I'm going to be unboxing and hopefully please try to follow them as per the diagram. I've just opened up my screw bag. Sounds a bit strange. There's quite a few pieces in here, as you can see. Quite a few. So I'm going to find which one I need. This one here and the one for the other side before I position the pieces ready to go. Now it's taken me a moment to work out which way round these pieces go, but if you do look very carefully at the instructions, you can just see the name, the maize name, on one side of the green piece, and that indicates which side I'm working with. So it says to position them while standing up. So in that case, now that I've worked out what goes where, I position those together. It's got no screw in the top or the bottom, and no screw in the middle. It says I need a screw here and here. The second and the fourth location. I'm going to place the little silver one on the back. A little bit tricky to get into that location, to that spot. And it says to tighten it with the Allen key. So, as I said, that's a little tricky to get that back piece in. So I'm going to just take a moment to try and tighten those up. As you can see here, I mentioned that was a bit of a tricky spot to get that screw into, different angle. Just once you get your fingers in there, it's relatively easy to turn from the front with the, where's the other one? Down there. With the Allen key. It's just a little tricky getting it started. That's the screw and the back, I'm actually not sure what you'd call that, that you put through there. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other side now. It's just taken me a little moment to line these, this side, this edge, it's the side with the protruding section, not that side. Take me a little moment to line that up. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that one on the other side of the green section. Got that second panel in place now. Those self-clinching nuts, which is what their name is, were much easier to fit on this side, as you can see, because they're much more exposed, so they're a lot easier to get my fingers into that spot. I'm going to go ahead with the next section, which is the remaining two panels, and as you'll note here in the instructions, so up to step 2 here, and you'll see that actually says here 2 times AA. Sorry, not 2 times, B, that's the panel, times 2, and AA times 4. And it actually says there's the actual size of AA, so there's AA, and to make it nice and simple, the bag with those parts in it is marked that it has parts AA, AD, which is the longest screw here, and AG, which is the self-clinching nut. And again, it has the actual size and we need 4 of those. So I've got 4 self-clenching nuts and 4 of the screws and the remaining 2 panels. So I'm going to go ahead and pop those on. Moving on to step 3 now, you can see that we need 2 of E, that's this part here, 2 of those, and we need 4 of the AAs. Again, that's the small screw, as you can see, the actual size. Another 4 of the AGs, the self-clinching nuts. And then moving on to step 4, just going ahead a little here, we need 2 of the ABs, that's this next size up, and then another 2 of the AGs. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the E section together. That will then slot in, as you can see, to the barrel that I've now constructed. We're left with one section open, and lock into place to form the division between the 2 compartments of the composter. Now just a note, once I actually worked out which side of this went where by using the maize logo, the maize name here on the green section, it was actually quite easy to put together to work out what went where. It was just a case of simply overlapping the pieces from one side to the other. As I said, once I worked out which way around the first one went, it was quite easy, and it was only really that first set of screws on this side hiding away in there that were a little bit tricky to reach. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the compartment division together. This one's just slightly tricky because we have the self-clenching nut, and it's got to slide in sideways into 2 slots just on the, shall we call this the open side of part E, panel E, we'll call that the closed side. So they just have to slot in there, and it actually gives you quite a good tip. It says that if it doesn't slot in tightly, doesn't hold in place tightly, turn it. If it doesn't slide in, turn it slightly. So I've actually had to turn the first one slightly to get it in. Now this one is nice and snug there now too. Now, a slight trick to putting this section in is that I've now realised I had to turn the whole unit over to put the maize symbol name on this side of the compartment. Good little tip here I've just found is when lowering this section, the divider in, pop the screw that you're going to put in into place. Helps you find the location a bit easier once inside. So this groove here, as you'll see, this groove needs to slot in just behind here and to meet up with that screw. So let's try and get that down now. There we are. There's the screw. I've met up with it. Now I've just got to line it up properly. Screw it in. So I'm going to have a go at that without you watching me. I'll come back. I actually found that step, popping this into place, quite difficult. Instead of putting this one in first, I found that if I put the side one in first, that made it a lot easier. Then with the front one, I had to just sort of pop the panel, the centre panel, the compartment divider, into place behind the green panel. Whilst tightening the screws, I found I needed 2 hands, so a bit of knee work here, just supporting the centre panel, allowed me to hold the screw in place with one hand and tighten with the other. So just a couple of tips for popping the centre compartment in place. Well, silly me, having to work out which way round the maize went. Duh, it actually told me right next to it. Missed that step. Very important. The reason I noticed it was because when I turned over to screw the other side in, voila, there it is, positioned upwards, and it actually says flip barrel over carefully so that that isn't facing upwards. So now I'm going to move on to step 5. So it's another day. I took a little break. Now heading on to step 6. Once again, it shows you exactly what pieces you need. 3 times AA and 3 times AG. And at this point I'm going to be putting the bolts in up here and down the bottom and on this side as well, connecting this. So actually this step now is going to be to connect the back together. So we're going to put one in here, flip the barrel over, put the one in down here, and then put this one in. Now they actually say in the instructions that it might be easier to put the nut into the spanner as such. Try that again. Put the nut actually into the spanner and then put it down into position to reach it. Let's give it a try, see what's easiest. So that you don't get confused like I just did. I put the nut in here for the center one only, popped it down inside, then slotted the screw through into place, held it in place inside using the spanner, and then turned it from the outside using the Allen key. So that's how that one works. Step 7 now, a little bit tricky. It involves these two pieces. There are two of them. One of them, if you look carefully, has holes, small holes, just around the edge here. The other one, part C, the one with holes is described as part D. Part C, as you notice, has no holes. They're actually filled in. So we need part D, which is this one with the holes, and we need 4 of these pieces. These are going to form the ratchet. Are we going inside the piece there, overlapping as such, inside, and the instruction is to connect them using the one of the larger screws, the middle-sized screw, and the bolt. Connect them at the center where they join, where each section joins first, each of these sections, then do the middle ones later. A couple of little tips for you here. You notice when you look at this section that there's not a lot of the bolt protrudes through here to connect into the nut. So you want to make sure that you tighten each of these nuts in on the back of here nice and securely. However, I had the first 4 joining nuts in place, screwed in real tight, then couldn't line up the in-between nuts and bolts. That's because here in this section where there's the opening, you need to make sure that a middle bolt is a nut and bolt are lined up in the middle, in the open section, not one of the joining ones. I had one of the joining ones in here, in this area here, and everything else was thrown out of alignment. So make sure that you have a join on either side of this opening here and not in the center. So I found out that it actually says up here in step 7 to attach the middle one first, and then to attach the joints, and then finally the remaining 3 bolts. So if I'd read that correctly, anyway, hopefully if you're watching this you won't make the same mistake because I've alerted you to it. So now with the maze symbol sign facing up, I'm going to attach this piece that we've just put together with the cogs in it, the gears, onto the top at these 2 locations first, which are these infamous 2 locations beside this opening here. So these 2 locations right here. To do that, we now need to use our screwdriver. We need to use some more of the AA size bolts, and now the AI connections, and these will be with the groove facing upwards. Let's have a go. Now it took a little bit of effort to squeeze the top down over here, over the side. Needed to squeeze the sides in a little bit in order to fit this, slot this over. We use the screwdriver in fact to hold the little silver piece in place, and then of course tighten with the screw. You can have a look through the hole before you put the screw in to make sure you're lined up with the hole in the silver piece, which I can't remember the name of. The barrel nut, there we go. So I've got the top and I've also got the bottom on now. remembering to put the two screws on either side of the opening in first. Once you get those in place, the rest around the top and also around the bottom are pretty easy. Just a little bit of jiggling with the screwdriver from above to hold it in place, and tightening from the front with the Allen key. Now I'm up to step 10, so now I'm going to put the handle together. So I need this part and the handle. These actually came already together. I then need this section, the black one here, then this piece, this one here, then two of this tiny screws out of the other bag, the other screw bag, and the two tiny nuts and the two longest screws. So let's see if we can get the handle together. Now, because of the position of these nuts right in here, what I found easiest was to put the screws through, tighten them as much as I could manually, just straight up with the Allen key, then using the Allen key still, but using the open end of the spanner to hold it in place and continue turning with the Allen key whilst holding it steady with the spanner in order to really tighten it up nicely. Now I'm going to put the very bottom of the base of the stand, well, the base of the stand together in step 11. Now, just one little tip. It took me a moment to find out which part these were. Part J by 2. So J by 2 are these pieces here with just the small holes in them. Different from K, which has the small holes but also has the large hole. So just so you know, J is the one without the large hole. Now with this part, it's important that you use the small nuts, the AH part, otherwise known as the nylock nuts, as opposed to the larger one in the other packet, which are the self-clinching nuts. Another little point, I straight away went to put the bolt into this one. Of course, it's not in this one on the end. It's these two on the flat. These two are on the vertical section. So we're now up to step 12, and this is using the K sections with the larger hole. Back here on step 11, just one tip. The bolts coming through the sides here were actually quite difficult to turn, so it was a case of having to use the spanner on one side and secure it with the Allen key on the other side. They were quite tight. Now we're going to put K in. As I said, I've got one already here in place. I'm going to tighten those nuts up, and I'm going to put the other piece on the other side. So step 13 was just popping the end caps in. I've done that on all 4 open ends there. I've now turned the barrel upside down with the maze name pointing upwards. Put it on its side, ready to mount onto the stand. So the stand, this is the vertical section which goes upwards, and this is the horizontal section which goes down. We tilt it all over in order to mount the barrel. So over the page onto step 15, we're going to mount the barrel, making sure to put the O-rings between the barrel and the stand. So technically, the circles that go between here, between the barrel and the stand, are the thread barrel spaces, not the O-rings, as I said, but I'm sure you got the drift. Now we're going to secure the piece that went, the bar that goes straight through the centre to turn it on. We're going to secure this on the sides using 2 of the AD bolts and 2 of the AH nuts, the nylock nuts. So I've got it all standing up now. We're going to move on to that step 17, stand it up. Step 18 is now placing the handle, putting the handle in place, making sure that the gears fit into the slots inside the side of the barrel. In order to do this correctly, we need to line the opening up on the same angle as the stand. So the opening is there, the stand is there. This will fit ultimately over the arm of the stand. So you have to put it in there, click it into the gears on an angle, and then a bit of pressure, I'm hoping, will push it into place. There we go. Voila, handle in. Now on to step 19. If we move the handle aside, we'll now see we have 3 holes here. We're going to use the AD bolts ×3 and back to the larger nuts. Let's see if we can see that. Sorry about the light there. These are back to the self-clinching nuts. So with this step, I have had to hold the nut into place at the back and tighten from the front with the long handle of the, with the short handle and the long section of the Allen key on all of those nuts. They're a bit tricky to hold into place, but once you get them going, it's quite easy. Just a tip on all of the bolts and nuts on the stand itself. In all of the places, particularly down the bottom here, and around the base of the stand, they are a bit difficult to get into place. So you do need to use both the spanner and the Allen key to really work them in, to get in there. Almost there, step 20. We need a whole lot of parts with this one. We need the AD screw. We need another one of the AHs, which are the nylock nuts. Then we need just a little piece, it's like a washer. I'll just see if I can, whoops, without dropping everything, show you that one. That's the tiny washer piece. And we also need this unusual piece, like a little cover. I'll check the proper name in a moment. And the piece that I've been wondering what it is, this one, which is in fact the crank ratchet. And this is all going to go together in this part here off the side of the barrel under the handle. I'm going to have a closer look and see how I need to do that. So this part is actually called a nylon spacer, and this one, proper name, is an oversized washer. It's not very oversized to me, but that's what they're terming it. Now, the nylon spacer goes inside the crank ratchet. Now this is the really tricky part. This has got to go in down here. There are 2 holes. The top one is the smaller hole. It needs to be fastened, secured by the top hole. Now, I've been struggling to line these up because you have no vision. It's all on feel. So, I got it. Wow. Now, somehow I need to put the washer behind on that bolt. Got it? And then the nylock nut behind that. I hope that I don't knock the washer off into the crank gears there. Oh, no, I've got it. Tighten it up. Tighten that up. Oh, this one's tightening with just holding the nut at the back. Although I'm going to tighten it up better using the Allen key. And in fact, I'm going to have to pop the spanner behind and hold that in place to finish it off. Well, managed to get that on without too much trouble at all, actually. And if you'll notice, when we can turn the barrel this way, of course, and then it locks off. If we want to turn it, we need to open that, then the barrel will turn. And when we put it down, it locks it into place. So it won't turn in that direction. Now we're going to move on to step 21, which is going to be putting the doors on. So we have the plus door, which is for the side that you are going to be adding your fresh compost material to, and the clock, the timer door. This is the one where you've already added stuff, and that's cooking, getting ready to be spread on your garden. So the doors are quite easy. They literally just slide into place. Just ensure that you have the part with the arrow on it and the little handle grip on the outer edge. So just pop it into place like so, and a little bit of push, and voila, doors in. Of course, I was wondering why there was an uneven number of the end caps. There were 5. I'm thinking, I've got 4 ends down the bottom. Where's the 5th one go? Okay. So on one side we have the handle. That handle cover covers the vertical arm of the stand. But on this side, see it's still open, so our 5th end cap goes in place there, and the round end cap goes in place over, see it better, over the open end of the shaft that goes through the centre. Done. Just as the included components list tells me, there we go, I should have 2 spare, that light's terrible, there we go, 2 spare button head socket screws, they're the smallest ones, 2 spare self-clinching nuts, they're the larger of the nuts, and I should have 1 spare nylock nut, which I have there, and 1 spare of the AC button head socket screws. So I have exactly the full amount of components as the components list detailed. It's a very well done maze. You've got everything listed there perfectly. I've finished the construction now, so let's just have a quick look. The last page of the instructions is about our features. There we go. So the sliding doors are interchangeable on either side of the barrel. I've put them in as they were pictured, but you can put them in whichever way suits your setup best. We also have the pull and rotate ratchet. Pull and rotate it up, and if you clock it into place so that the bump, there we go, snaps. There we go, it's got to snap the ratchet into place behind the crank cover, and that means that you can turn the barrel with ease. You'll see the green bits going around there, knowing that I'm turning it. No, where's the green bit? There's a green bit. Okay. And when we want to lock that in place, simply, oh, we don't jam our finger like that. Tip for young players. Ow! Okay, don't pull it out from this side where you can jam your fingers. Health tips here as well. Pull it out from this side, so we've got it locked into place. Pull it out from this side, let it bounce into place itself without your fingers being in the way. Warnings, warnings. Unfortunately, jamming your fingers in the ratchet lock is not in the warnings. Another of the features are the air vents on the sides. That's the green sections I was mentioning. You can open and close the air vents depending on your specific needs for how your compost is cooking, whether it needs to dry out a little bit if it's too wet and not cooking properly. You can open them up or close them off if everything's nice and dry in the way it needs to be for your particular situation. So you've got a special extra warning about not jamming your finger in the ratchet cover. A couple of extra other official warnings in here. Be careful of getting your fingers jammed up here, catching your fingers in the gears, because if you get in there and someone's turning the barrel, not going to be pleasant. Another one is, of course, don't turn it around. Let's open it up so we can turn it around. Don't turn it around with the doors open, because then your compost will be feeding the ground below before it's ready. And, well, beware of catching your fingers in the doors. I suppose if you did shut them from both sides suddenly, you could, with a thumb in the centre, you could catch your fingers. Let's have a look. Let's see if we could do that. It's a bit of a strange warning, but let's have a look. So we turn it round to our doors open. There's our doors. So we've got the doors open and we're going like this. Yeah, we could catch our fingers, not so much in between the doors, but between the door and the divider in the centre. So yeah, fair enough warning. Let's see, anything else that we need to discuss on the warnings? Oh, to stand clear of the handle, as it may spin fast. So I suppose if you're spinning it manually, don't stand too close to it so that it catches on you as you're spinning. Let's have a look a bit. You can see as it doesn't want to catch you. So stand well clear to turn the handle. And again, there's another reason why you don't want to spin the barrel with the doors open, because what happens? If you can see down lower there, they get caught on the stand and you risk breaking the doors. So there we go. Perfect reason not to spin it with the doors open. close them up, and it spins nicely. So there we have the maize, let me get the full name, the Maize Compost Tumbler, sometimes known on some areas, some markets, as the Maize Eco Compost Tumbler. And as I said at the start, the new improved model from the one that's had quite a lot of bad reviews, I believe, in the last few years on the internet. So I'm just going to do a time check and let you know how long that process took me. All up, taking into account going to and fro with the video and seeing to various things around the house in the same process, that's taken me a little under 3 hours to construct that. Checking it very carefully, of course, all as I went, so that I can make sure I got all the details right for you. So there we have it in all its glory, the Maize Eco Tumbler. Of course, you can visit their website there. You can see an assembly video there, but I bet you they don't give you the tips and tricks like me. Now I'm just getting into composting. I have a small benchtop compost bin with cornstarch liners that I'm using. I've also purchased this lovely soft flexible bucket that I'm going to put beside the Eco Tumbler. And this will be to keep all of the dry material that I collect from around the yard, the leaves, branches, etc., that I'll use to help cook in there with the wet material such as the food scraps. And I might, depending on where I position this, might put some holes in the bottom of there to drain any water that might collect if it rains, so that I can keep it dry. And there it is, my first explainer video. Hope you enjoyed it. Click that big like button, subscribe, and I don't know, might make some more, we'll see. But unboxed from the box here, we see the Maize Compost Tumbler to fully constructed, ready to go, ready to cook my lovely compost. And not only have I decided to compost in order to create some lovely fresh composting material for my garden to help it grow, but mostly to actually get rid of the food scraps that I'm collecting in our kitchen. We don't throw a lot of food away, but we do have peels and scraps from preparation, the parts of food that you don't eat, like rinds and peels, as I mentioned. And when you realise that when these go into landfill, they create a terrible amount of noxious gas and affects the greenhouse layer, etc., etc. Basically, it's very bad for the environment. So that's the main reason that I've decided to compost, is to actually turn my otherwise very harmful food scraps that will end up in landfill into something that's going to help the land. So happy composting to everyone. If anyone's got any questions about the construction of the Maize Compost Tumbler, please feel free to pop that in the comments below. Thanks for watching.